Oh, and welcome into the Starters, episode 9. I'm Dave, of course, and that is George and Simon. How's it going, boys?
David, George, what's going on?
Living the dream.
Oh, I love it.
That's
I
right.
love it. Simon is you can't miss him. I love him in that yellow. It looks like it's a
Big bird in the house.
Shout out
Concordia
to
basketball.
Walton. There you go. All right. Yes, sir. The big man.
Beautiful. Dwight Walton steps in and he gives you merch. He hasn't given us any merch yet, but it's okay. It's okay.
Well, when you got to do what I got to do, Dave. You got to continue.
You got to support.
No, or harass is the word I would use.
Oh.
But whatever you want. Sure. Yes. Support is the better word. Absolutely.
The problem is Dwight's a big man. I don't know if I want to get on the harass train just yet.
You got to know what
that's fair.
You got to make sure there's like several districts between you and Dwight.
Okay.
All right. Well, be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok at the Starter 690. Of course, on YouTube. Be sure to follow us and play along. Guys, ready to roll in and start this?
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
All right. I don't know what you guys were doing Saturday night. Friday. To Friday night, but Jake Paul, Mike Tyson went at it. There was a lot of hype, obviously, and they made a ton of money. It wasn't necessarily, obviously, the greatest bout. But I just want to get your take on it because we've seen a few, and I doubt we've seen the last. Influencer super fights. Are you in or are you out?
Full out, Dave. As far as out as I can be. If I wanted to watch stuff like that, I would just go to a local bar downtown, maybe during a Habs Bruins games, and watch Habs and Bruins fans go out. I don't know. I don't listen. I don't get the appeal. I honestly don't, but you're looking at a guy that, will watch the big time fights and stuff like that. UFC, yes, a little bit more, Conor McGregor and GSP and stuff like that were in the ring. That would draw me to watch a fight, but more so with friends than the actual fight. Mm-hmm. So I simply do not get the appeal. I don't have a problem with them doing it, get paid. I wish I had a payday along those lines. That would be absolutely wonderful. But I don't know what it says about a society when we tune in to watch a 58-year-old man crawl into the squared circle. And again, I didn't watch. I just watched the highlights afterwards on Twitter and stuff like that. And, people calling it a fraud and people breaking down tape and film about where Mike Tyson could have finished Paul and he didn't. But no, not for me, David.
Fair.
Look, listen, they say a sucker is born every minute. And it would appear that the Paul brothers have figured this out as they are deep in the matrix, the modern P.T. Barnum, if you will. He seems to be able to draw attention. The Tyson fight was a big fight for many reasons. One is nostalgia, right? I mean, if we go back, and I was explaining this to my son, Mike Tyson would draw people to local bars to watch it on closed circuit television, and it was an event. This doesn't happen anymore, right, Simon?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we lived through this. This
No.
was when it was a Tyson fight. It was we're going to the local bar. We're going to find a seat. Yeah, absolutely. And somehow he's managed Jake Paul to kind of bring this back in some crazy nostalgic way. But the problem is that the spectacle isn't very good is the issue. And it hasn't been just this fight. I mean, I don't know, knocking out, washed up UFC fighters and basketball players. I don't get it. But in this modern day, you need that quick fix, whether it's on Instagram, TikTok. He's mastered it. He's mastered the marketing, and he's made a place for it, whether we like it or not. And I have to say I don't like it because that's the question. It's going to continue going. And P.T. Barnum, Jake Paul, hats off, man, making a lot of money.
Dave loves these guys. I know Dave loves these guys.
I respect it.
First of all, the kid can fight, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know why it's become this misconception that, he's a YouTuber. Dude, YouTubers can beat up people. Like, chartered accountants can beat up people. Dentists. Give me a professional.
Yeah. I think, though, Simon, the one knock against Jake Paul is when he did fight a guy who is the same age.
Yeah.
He was in his weight class.
Mm-hmm.
He lost the fight, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying George, he knows his way a little bit around.
No, he can fight. I agree with you.
Like stuff like that. So people are blown away because of YouTuber. Like, YouTuber can, kick people's behinds. I will tell you what I loved about this, though. And I didn't watch a second of it, but I knew exactly where to find it. And maybe there's something to be said there about boxing. about getting us on for people to, go on online and this and that, or go to a bar and find it and whatever. The fact that a big time event was simply on Netflix brings me back to, again, I don't want to go too old on you people, but I remember when the fight was very easily accessible on HBO. Some of the biggest fights of my life.
Yeah.
I knew exactly where to find them. I didn't have to download this. I didn't have to get the Zone or whatever, or Fubu or whatever streaming service. It was available for the masses. There's something to be said about that.
And one last point, if you guys have ever had a chance to watch wrestling, Logan Paul is one hell of a wrestler. Holy cow. Like, so they do have talent. There's no doubt. But I think what their big ability is marketing. They seem to have busted the matrix on this one. So
yeah, I mean, I'm obviously a huge fan of their marketing. I think they're fantastic at it. I regrettably watched all 8 rounds of this fight. It was absolutely awful. But I mean, look, they got my attention, even though I really didn't want to give it to them. I wasn't really excited for it. They still got my however long I watched that entire card. So good on them. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I mean, I'm ready to move on from these super fights, and maybe you could just get like actual. I know it's harder and harder to do it, but like get these actual like super fights between actual fighters in their prime, whether it be UFC or boxing. I mean, it's just too, I don't know, oversaturated, I guess you can say, and for a ton of reasons, they don't face each other in their primes anymore as it used to be. But I mean, I'm with you guys. I'm ready to move on from these things. Just like we'll move on to question number 2, brought to you by Cunningham's Pub. They were named the top 5 fish and chips in all of Montreal. Ooh. Believe it or not, fish and chips at Cunningham's. Who would have thought so? But I mean, they not only have the best wings, but now they have top 5 fish and chips. I mean, I'm sure you can have that in any season, but I'm sure summertime in St. Anne's, you cannot beat that atmosphere for fish and chips there. So be sure to check them out at Cunningham's Pub. All right, guys, we're about 2/3 into the NFL season, and we saw Kansas City no longer undefeated. I just want to know, 2/3 in, what is your Super Bowl matchup?
Look, I think it's wide open, to be honest with you. You've got a lot of good football teams right now at the top, and you got some good football teams struggling too. Look, I keep looking at what the Ravens have and Lamar and his back-to-back MVPs, and I just think the addition of Derrick Henry, when that winter weather rolls around, that team is kind of built to kind of slow games down and beat you up. And on the NFC, I like the Eagles. I think the Eagles have figured it out somehow. The addition of Saquon Barkley is the biggest addition in the offseason in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. Let's forget about the spectacular plays of him, jumping backwards over players while trying to be tackled, which is incredible in itself. Simon, when we look at Saquon Barkley, we're looking at the, probably best running back in the NFL that they acquired. And this guy can change a game. He can bust one every time he touches the ball. He's that good. The Eagles look good. Their defense looks good. I like them in the NFC. I'm going to go Ravens, Eagles for now. I wouldn't count the Chiefs out, though. Can't count the Chiefs out.
Yeah, and you look at both those teams, the Ravens and the Eagles. They both make these big off moves at the running back position, and it seems like both of them worked out. I love both those units. Like, I love the Ravens when they're clicking on offense. I think they're as special as any group of 11 out there. It's just somehow, Dave, your Ravens have a way of just getting in their own way. 3 turnovers, field goals, 12 penalties. Like, no disrespect to the Steelers. They won that football game. It was a very physical affair. But, when your opposition puts the ball on the ground 3 times, they take 12 penalties, and they miss 2 field goals. That makes it a lot easier for the Steelers. I'm going to go Ravens as well. But I'm going to, when you want to talk about special 11, and also look how sexy the running back position is again. Only difference in Detroit, it's a 2-headed monster with Gibbs and Montgomery. That group of 11 on the Lions offense, I don't think they care what their defense does. And if their defense puts, gives up a 30 spot or a 35 spot, I think the Lions are very content to be the first team to get to 40. That's a special offense. If they can hold serve on the NFC side, meaning people have to go to Detroit, they get to play in those friendly confines, they get to play in the dome, I think it makes it even more difficult. They have a very tough schedule coming down the stretch. But nonetheless, I'll go Lions, Ravens, and then I'll go Lions, honorable mention, Buffalo Bills.
Simon, I would have loved to go with the Lions, but I think the loss of Aiden Hutchinson is too much to overcome for that team. I think it's a huge loss. You're losing, a cornerstone on defense, and he's one of the main pieces of that defense.
He's the closer, George, and that's right. Patrick Mahomes in that offense hasn't looked good in over a year, and they have a Super Bowl title to back that up. We forget how often Chris Jones goes out and closes out.
Absolutely.
The Pittsburgh Steelers have been bad, good this year, terrible last year, even though they were a playoff team at the quarterback position. But TJ Watt knows how to close out football games. You go back the last couple of years, the teams that have had those guys, Bosa when he's healthy in San Francisco, it makes a big deal. And the Lions, you're right, have lost that edge on defense where they could just have a guy out there, play the role. Dave, you like this one, of John Wetland to close the game.
Hey, I love it.
All right.
I love it. All right, we'll move on to question number 3, brought to you by EA Fitness. EA Fitness having a big Black Friday sale, 20% off your first 3 months. They'll give you a 7-day free pass to test it out, to test the water, see if you like it. And they also have, obviously, a referral program. So if you bring some friends and refer them, you can get some pretty good deals there. EA Fitness, great place to train. You could even bump into the great Simon Salikas over there. So check them out.
I went today, Dave.
You went today? You were there?
Yeah, my Thursday boot camp class. Yes.
Oh, I like it. Are you sore?
I am, David.
All right, good. All right, so we'll talk Habs. Get into the Habs right now. And basically, about like 3 weeks ago, it was all doom and gloom for the Habs. I mean, it looked absolutely awful. The product was terrible. They were at the bottom of the standings in the NHL, and you were just kind of wondering what is going on in every aspect, and especially defensively. But now, it seems like, they beat the Stanley Cup finalists in the Edmonton Oilers. They had a good showing against Columbus on the weekend. I just want to know, do you guys think the Habs have turned the corner? Like, is there anything in these recent games that you've seen that have really given you maybe a hint that, they've passed all this difficult time? Or has it just been a stretch of good games and beware?
No, I'm going to say, Dave, yeah. I'm going to listen. I don't know if they're, I don't think they're turning a corner here and heading north up the standings at 100 miles an hour here. But I just think that they learned to be a little bit better in their own end. And I think the moment they did that, and the last couple of games, it's not a long stretch here, but the last couple of games where I don't think they're going to get worse defensively, right? I think you're going to implement the system and eventually guys will start to figure it out a little bit more. Maybe they'll never be great defensively. I don't know. But they can be better defensively. And I think when you get that, I think you get the Sam Montembeault that we've seen the last couple of games. I don't think he's an elite goaltender, but he can win you a game and he can even steal you a game here and there. So I think the moment they clean up the blue line defensively and also as a collective, all 5 guys in their own end of the rink, they get a save. I think that helps them. And I think they're at that point now. They just look better in their own end. I love the game they went to Minnesota. It was a high hockey IQ game. You gave up a goal, then you gave up a power play goal, and then you gave up an empty netter against a team that likes to stifle teams defensively. They like to just suck the game out of you. And it was a good road game. It came out as a loss, but it was a good road game. So I like what I've seen the last couple of games, better in their own end, and I think it starts with that.
Yeah, look, I'm going to echo the sentiments of Simon. I think they have turned somewhat of a corner. Are they going to go rocketing up the standings? No. But they figured some stuff out in their own end. I think there's a commitment to 5-on-5 play in their own end. Sam Montembeault has looked a lot better. I still think they're going to have to make a decision on Primo very soon because that's looking like a situation that is not tenable. You can't have a goaltender, with an 8-something save percentage, giving up 5 goals a game. This just isn't. It's not a tenable situation. But they've seemed to figured a few things out. However, let's temper expectations. They beat Columbus, who is a team that, for all intents and purposes, is going to be one of the 2-3 worst teams in the NHL, and a Oilers team that looks a little bit hungover from their run. I think the Oilers, let's face it, they kind of look at the regular season as this is not the time we're going to kill ourselves. We just got to get in and then we'll make some noise. So given those two things, I think the Habs are playing better, but I don't think they're going to be, in the mix. If that's because we use that since the beginning of the year, in the mix, not quite in the mix yet. I don't think they're going to be in the mix this year, but they're playing a lot better, and I think it'll continue.
That's fine, to be honest. To be honest, if you're any Habs fan, you just needed to see them, I guess, just improve a little bit and take a next step forward. They don't have to contend. They don't have to make a play for the playoffs or anything. You're just kind of hoping that they turn the corner from all their woes that they were having. I mean, defensively, it was just absolutely terrible. So it's good to see that they're kind of moving forward.
It's 20 games into the season. If they win to Saturday night against Vegas, they're 4 points out of a playoff spot, I believe, off the top of my head. 4 points out of a playoff spot. 20 games into the season, and you're 4 points out of a playoff spot, you're kind of in the mix.
Yeah. Well, sort of. Yeah, sort of, yeah. I mean, you're not out of the mix. We'll say that. You're not out of the mix.
Kind of in the mix. That's it.
And you may have a big piece coming back quite soon enough. So that can make things quite interesting. All right, we'll keep talking Habs. We'll move on to the next question. Brought to you by Boneyard. Check them out at Boneyard MTL. They have some amazing, delicious bowls. They're located in the LaBrosse Brewery on LaBrosse Street, obviously in Pointe Claire, a block away from Fairview. Absolutely perfect location. Great place to go and get some hearty bowls. I mean, they look absolutely delicious. So check them out at Boneyard MTL. All right, guys. So we all know the Boston Bruins. They fired their head coach, Jim Montgomery, and we kind of know he's a good Chinois, right? He speaks a lot of good French, and he's had some history here. So I just want to know, I mean, not necessarily with all the rumors / fake rumors of perhaps the Canadians looking into getting some help from Marty St. Louis, not necessarily replacing him, but getting some help behind the bench that were quickly refuted by the Canadians themselves. Should the Habs maybe check in on someone like Jim Montgomery and see if maybe he'd be interested in joining the boys behind the bench?
100%. And I'll tell you, I think Jim Montgomery got a raw deal in Boston, and I don't think it's fair. That's an aging roster. Sweeney's missed on a few drafts, especially the last. I remember one draft where they had 3 picks, and I don't believe any of those guys are on the roster. 3 picks in the first round, and none of those guys are on the roster. That's a good coach, not far removed from Coach of the Year either. The issue is always going to be, how does he fit into not being the head guy on a Martin St. Louis, coach team, where I think Jim Montgomery has a lot more coaching experience than Martin St. Louis. Does St. Louis want to share those responsibilities with a guy that has more experience, not only as an NHL coach, but just coaching in general? That might be a hard fit. But if I'm the Montreal Canadiens, I go see Martin St. Louis. I'm like, listen, is this the type of guy you want to bring in? Do you want to talk to him? Do you want to see? And I check if Jim Montgomery's interested in coming home. He's going to be a candidate for the head coaching job one day here. There's no doubt about it. Because there's not 50 guys that speak French that can come and coach here. I mean, that have NHL experience. And they're not going to hire a guy with no NHL experience to be the coach of the Montreal Canadiens unless the guy's Martin St. Louis. So I'm going to say, yeah, you check in, you see what's going on, and you pass it through Martin St. Louis, and you see if this is a good fit. I think it would be a good fit. This would be a very good fit.
Yeah, the Bruins, just before you go, Simon, the Bruins selected Jake DeBrusk and two guys who have a combined 19 games, and they passed on Barzal, Connor, and Thomas Chabot, which were
so Don Sweeney. If Don Sweeney wants to fire anybody, I'm not. Oops, indeed.
Yeah, that's and what DeBrusk is gone this year, right?
Yeah, he's gone too.
From picking and some really good players. Was it? You said Barzal, Chabot, and
Barzal, Chabot, and Kyle Connor.
Oh, My goodness.
You get any of those three, you changed your entire franchise.
The best is that they had 3 in a row, and then it was like the 3 exact ones afterwards were heavy hitters. It's just brutal.
It's terrible.
Look, this is a tough one. I think this is Martin St. Louis' decision. Easy for us to say, yes, let's do it. But do you want to bring in a guy behind the bench? I don't. Is there a relationship there? Is there a connection there? I don't know if they've ever coached together, hung out together. I don't think they've ever played together. So I like it because it's not a little, somebody like the old guard to come over here and go behind the bench with Martin St. Louis, because I don't think that Martin St. Louis, I don't know if that old guard type of coach resonates with him. I'm sure you can have him as an assistant, but I just don't think that fits Marty's profile. So here it's interesting. I like it. If you ask me, yes or no, I'd say yes. But I'm not Martin St. Louis, and bringing somebody on the bench with former Bruins head coach, he's had a great regular season, some decent postseason failures up that he won against the Florida Panthers. They went on to lose that series, having home ice as well. But do you want that guy over your shoulder? I don't know. I'd like to see it because I think there's room for one more guy behind the bench. I'd love it to be Jim Montgomery. I'm just interested to see what Martin St. Louis would have to think about this.
Yep, that's fair enough. All right, then we'll move on to the final question of the night. Basically brought to you by Resto Vivaldi. Of course, check them out. Currently booking their Christmas parties, holiday parties. So make sure to reserve yours at Resto Vivaldi on Instagram. You can follow them there. All right. So Dave Pagnotta came on to our boy Mitchie Gallo and Sean Campbell's show earlier in the week, and he dropped some pretty interesting news about how apparently Arbor Xhekaj was a hot commodity, through the off season and into this season, where teams were calling. And there is a report that perhaps the Canadiens turned down a first round pick. Now, look, listener, beware. We've heard that last year with Josh Anderson, right? I mean, who knows how much truth is to this, and how much is this them trying to build a market for Arbor Xhekaj? But would you have traded Arbor Xhekaj for a first round pick?
Yes. Yes, I would have. And specifically, who's calling, right? Like the one thing in the last 50 years of football, the Chicago Bears got right was when they had everybody asking for that first round pick, which was Bryce Young. They identified the Carolina Panthers as a team from all the teams that were calling that had a high probability of being bad, even with Bryce Young in the lineup. And they got that one right because the Bears got to pick first overall. So if you're asking me to dissect a team that might pick up the phone and call, and I think that team is on, borrowed time, playing at a high level, but for whatever reason, free agents are about to walk out the door, maybe just caught lightning in a ball. I don't know. And that draft pick the year after could become a lot greater. For instance, they got Tim Stützle off the I believe it was Stützle, maybe not, but it was one of their young players in Ottawa. They got him because they traded Erik Karlsson, and San Jose Sharks were not supposed to be terrible, and they were terrible. So if you can identify a team specifically that you don't think is going to live up to the hype, yes, I would definitely trade Arbor Xhekaj to a team that might be a mid-pack team the following year. Absolutely.
Look, it's a tough one because he's a fan favorite, right? I mean, and he does some stuff that no one else really does on the Montreal Canadiens. So it'd be tough to kind of trade that. But at the same time, this isn't one of the, great young players, Chris Chelios, for example, that we jettisoned to the Chicago Blackhawks for Denis Savard. This isn't
PK Subban.
Yeah, well, PK Subban, or we can go even the defenseman in Tampa Bay. I can't remember his name now. Sergachev. Yeah, I can remember his name, Sergachev, that we traded out, or even the kid we traded to the Rangers in the Gomez deal.
Ryan
McDonough. I mean, it's not this. So I'm ready to take a first because I think there is depth. There is guys in Laval that are knocking on the door. Can someone else do what Xhekaj is doing? Maybe not this year, but I think you can find another Xhekaj type player to do what he is doing. Look, he's fun, man. He's fun, and hockey's about entertainment, and he is an entertaining hockey player. The problem is he's not a defensive dynamo. He's not an offensive dynamo. He's sometimes, I would say, not great in his own end. I'm ready to move him for a first. I think that's just great asset management if that offer's on the table. I would doubt that offer's on the table, Simon. I can't see an NHL team offering a first-round pick for Xhekaj, despite whatever intangibles he may have, because I think the intangibles do not outweigh the value of a first-round pick, because a first-round pick, as you guys know, is a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah.
We just talked about it. We just talked about how the Bruins had 3 lottery tickets and missed out on all 3, and how it affects your franchise. Would another franchise, give one of the lottery tickets for a guy that you kind of know what you're getting with Xhekaj? I don't think Xhekaj is going to become a Larry Robinson. It's not going to happen. That's just not in the cards for Xhekaj. So the answer is absolutely, I do it. I don't think it's on the table. I wouldn't worry about it. Maybe we should talk about a second-round pick, and my answer might still be yes.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. That was fun. Be sure for everyone to listen in on TSN 690.
Want to throw some props to one thing, Dave, here. I want to throw some props here to Simon.
I was drinking Coca-Cola, eh? That's all it was.
Very nice. No, I wanted to throw some props here to Simon. He whipped my ass in the trivia this morning. Yeah, he gave me the business.
Try to replace the legend. The legend Jimmy G. Hard to do.
However, there was a Martin Straka reference and a Tomas Steen reference. So I will hang my hat on those. Thank you.
I love it. So you're on the pop quiz. I missed it. Oh man, I got to go back and listen.
All right.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear it. I mean, you can't replace Jimmy G. It's just impossible.
No.
That's awesome. So yeah, be sure to tune in to TSN 690 Saturday and Sundays 10 to noon. Simon and Joey are back at it this weekend. Thanks, boys.
Ciao, boys. Have a good one.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.